Hello and welcome to Business Lunch. I'm Nisha Poddar, and as always with me is my co-anchor Pavitra Parekh. So weekday of trade today. In fact, take a look at that. As I look at Nifty 50 at this point, of course, opened again today defending the 17,000 levels. It dipped below, but still just holding on to the 17,000 psychological level with this with the teeth on the skin. It looks like so 0.6% down in trade when it comes to the key indices. And when it comes to the banking space, see, nervousness has always been more prevalent in the financials, and they have taken the charge for the downslide in a weak trending market. And also looking at the inflation concerns from overseas, which we are watching out for today, also expiry day. So a lot of really factors conjuring for market weakness today. Bank Nifty down over 1%, mid caps also underperforming the key indices, 0.76% down in trade. Just take a look at some of the big boys. When we talk about Reliance Industries, one of the high weightage counters on Nifty 50, that has underperformed the market in last 1 month. So if you really take a look at 1 month trajectory, it is down almost 10%, while Nifty 50 is down almost 6%. So that has underperformed the market, while some of the financials, ITC, Bharti Airtel have been the outperformers. So now it's stock specific action that we'll have to watch out from here on. But looks like overall market on a weakish trajectory today as we speak, Pavitra.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely a down day. No two ways about that. In fact, not just below the 17,000 mark, we also slipped below the 200-day average. So we did slip below the 16,986 mark as well. We've come off those levels, but you're still seeing that 0.6% cut. The Asian markets are also looking quite weak. Hang Seng, Taiwan have also slipped further in the past few minutes. So Taiwan is down over 2%. Hang Seng seeing a cut of 1.6%. So there's no respite in those markets either. Some of the stocks which are holding up, you have some from the pharma pack, which are going to come up for you. These are faring relatively better in this weak market, the likes of Sun Pharma holding up. Of course, tech is a whole other story, and we'll get to that. HCL Tech is doing well, but on the downside, you have something like a Wipro, which is seeing cuts of almost 7% right now. Some of the auto names also faring slightly better, but then you have something like an ONGC on the downside, which because of this sharp move that we've seen in crude prices is seeing some cuts. So that's what's happening with the market action. In terms of the cues to track, it'll be a lot about the crude prices, and then the big global cue is that the CPI data is awaited from the US, and the market will of course react to that tomorrow. So that's what we're tracking. But let's get to the individual stories. HCL Tech met expectations in the second quarter. In fact, they've also gone ahead and raised the full year growth guidance. That was a big positive surprise. But Wipro's second quarter was also largely in line with estimates, but the company actually expects growth in the third quarter to remain quite modest. So let's hear out what the managements of both of these big tech companies had to say.
Margin performance has significantly improved. We did very well. We posted an EBIT of 18%, which is in line with our desired recovery plan. It's a result of significant operational efficiency measures coming to fruition. We've got good billing rate improvements for all the higher-end services that we are delivering to our customers. We remain very positive of our near-term growth and the medium-term growth. This confidence is coming from the booking that we've had in the first half of this year, and also the quality of pipeline that we have for the remainder of the year.
In a market condition where uncertainty exists, and I think it's true for most of the sectors across, Europe and America, we just felt the need to be cautiously optimistic. And we will continue to observe the evolution of the market. For now, the demand continues to be strong, and certainly, if we look at the volume of deals to close in Q3, we are also optimistic and positive about the fact that we can deliver another strong quarter in bookings.
Let me first start with what we shared last quarter. We said that for 2 to 3 quarters, we believe that we will be in this range. And, despite having made investment of a month of salary increases, plus the promotions that we gave from beginning of the quarter, happy to report we are at slightly higher than where we were in quarter 1. Commentary remains the same for quarter 3. We will have 2 months impact of salary increase, and we believe that we will remain at 15% or slightly above is the number that we shared in past, and we continue to see that. It's difficult to call right now for Q4. We don't guide, but clearly the endeavor in medium term is to continue to improve that trajectory and of margin. And this range of 15 that we have shared is for the 2-3 quarters that we spoke about in beginning of Q1.
All right, lots of earnings to digest from the IT space. But moving away from that, let's focus on the metal sector and one pocket of metals, which is the aluminium space. And stocks of both Hindalco as well as Nalco are surging today after reports indicate that the United States is considering imposing a ban on Russian aluminium. Nigel is right here to tell us all about this development and the impact on the Indian aluminium players.
Overnight, aluminium prices, LME prices, they did spike up by around 5 to around 6% odd. And the key reason is that the United States, reports indicated that the United States is considering banning Russian supplies, that's aluminium supplies out there. Remember, for Russia, the big producer is Rusal. They account for close to around 6% of the global aluminium production. And ex of China, well, that's the largest producer itself. So if there is a ban, then there could be some sort of a base for aluminium prices. But the big question is, can the US in fact implement this? There are reports that suggest they would, but can they? Because the US imported aluminium products worth close to around $1 billion in 2021. That's not all. In the first few months of this year, well, on a monthly basis, the imports from Russia, in fact, they had moved up drastically. That's the first quarter, first couple of quarters of this year itself. Remember, this is not the first time. It happened earlier as well in 2018. At that point of time, we saw aluminium prices surge up by close to around 30%. But by early 2019, they realized it's not sustainable, and that's why these sanctions were lifted. For the time being, though, aluminium prices are holding steady, in fact, higher overnight on back of hopes that there could be some curtailment of supplies. Back to you.
All right, Nigel, thanks a lot for getting us all of those details. With that, it's time for our first short break in the show. But when we return, we're going to talk about the big macro data that came through. Inflation has accelerated 7.4% in the month of September, while industrial production contracts in August. We're watching Business Lunch, and let's talk about the macro data that came through yesterday now. India's consumer price inflation rose to a 5-month high. It's come in at 7.4% for the month of September. This is versus the 7% that we saw in August. Now, this is the 9th straight month of retail inflation reaching the RBI's target band. Meanwhile, India's factory output contracted by 0.8% in August. So Lata joins us now with all of the numbers and her analysis. Lata.
Well, it was always expected September inflation would be high, but 7.4 is about 10 basis points higher than the 7.3, which most of the respondents told us in the poll. The painful part is food. Food is 8.6% higher and pummeled by two of the most important elements in our food thali, cereals and veggies. Cereals up nearly 10%, and vegetables close to 20%. So these are going to be painful, though part of it was expected. The worry is that the long withdrawal of monsoon, which we are witnessing, could make October inflation also high. So on the street, economists are moving from an expectation of 35 basis hike in December towards 50%. There's a slight upward bias to expectations of rate hikes. Core inflation is also high, 6.1% compared to 5.9% in the previous one, but that is on expected lines. The 9th month of CPI being above 6% is important because the given mandate to the MPC is that it should be between 2 and 6% for 3 quarters in a row. If they don't keep to that mandate, they have to write a letter explaining it. This could be an added pressure on the MPC and RBI. So a slightly more hawkish stance in December can't be ruled out. But all these are pale in terms of comparison to what is happening outside in the world, what happens to crude, what happens to US CPI. So the bond markets will react, but there are too many other factors to which they will react. A word on IIP, we normally don't give much importance to that number, but this is painfully bad. at minus 0.8. The expectations were between 1.8 and 2%. We knew that the core sector had done badly. Those numbers were with us. Did you see the consumer non-durables and consumer durables number? Consumer non-durables is 10% contraction. Ties in with the fact that all the FMCG companies told us that they have done mid-single digit and low single digit. Something's really going wrong at the bottom of the pyramid. That's the message. Even July's IIP has been pulled down by 20 basis. Actually, yesterday's data is a bit more worry on growth rather than on inflation.
All right, Lata, thanks so much for adding all that perspective to the inflation numbers. Now, the UK debt market turmoil is because of the easy money and zero rates policy followed for so long, says the former RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan. He argues that given likely problems of over-leverage by the pension funds and also shadow banks, Western central banks must only raise rates and not try to simultaneously reduce their balance sheets. Listen in.
In the time of low interest rates, when their liabilities were really high, well, they not only bought gilts, but they levered up in order to buy more gilts. So what happened was when interest rates went up, because of the British government basically spending more, the value of gilts fell. And so their assets became lower valued. Their liabilities also became low valued. In order to take the asset play, they had bought into a bunch of derivatives. And so what they needed was immediate money to make up the difference. That was what forced them into starting to sell some of their assets because they didn't have the money. When the central bank floods the market with liquidity, banks that have to hold that liquidity, what do? They basically write all sorts of claims on liquidity. They issue demand deposits, they issue lines of credit. So this is all very good when the central banks are supplying the market with liquidity. Now what is happening is they're withdrawing liquidity. When they're withdrawing liquidity, it turns out that all these claims start becoming a little more anxious. So what happened with the British pension funds, that they couldn't find the liquidity to make up some of the demands on them. Markets are testing the central banks and saying, look, you can't raise interest rates and withdraw liquidity at the same time, even though you need that for monetary tightening.
All right, that is Raghuram Rajan talking about the UK debt market situation. So that's an important word coming in. But with that, let's move on and talk about the aviation sector now. Sources are telling CNBC-TV18 that the government is not planning on reintroducing airfare price caps, while privatization of a number of airports may also be on the cards. This is information that my colleague Abhimanyu is picking up, and he joins us to tell us more about this. Abhimanyu?
Well, government sources have informed that the Aviation Ministry is seeking inclusion of ATF in GST. However, the final decision rests with the government as of now. Also, sources noted that the ATF price was down since the 1st of October. 3% fall was due to lower crude price, and the rest 3% fall was due to negotiations. However, the 6% benefit which was accrued was offset by a 10% devaluation of rupee, so no benefit as such was given as far as ATF prices were concerned. As far as the government's plans on a possibility of price caps is concerned, the government for now is not planning any price caps and does not want to interfere with the market dynamics of the aviation sector. Also, sources had indicated that festive demand is raising airfares, which will improve the financial health of airlines. Additionally, a cabinet note is also going to be possibly sent soon to approve privatization of the next bundle of 11 airports. It may be noted that this plan earlier was shelved and delayed, and this is something which has been indicated now through sources that the plan which was shelved has been revived, and soon a cabinet note may be moved for privatization of the next bundle of 11 airports.
Abhimanyu, a very important public interest story there because of the festivities coming in, holiday season coming in. Pavitra, the revenge travel, aspect is going to be a bummer because of airfares going high, and especially because of crude inflation. So that is going to really spike, and try to lower the expectation as far as the revenge travel bit is concerned. So all the sectors who are linked to the hospitality as well as travel must really take a look at the crude prices on a regular basis. With that, we'll slip into a short breather on Business Lunch. But remember, tube wells in Rajasthan are running dry, putting livelihoods of farmers at imminent risks. Watching Business Lunch, a quick look at the markets, and still 100 points down on Nifty 50 and still just holding on to the 17,000 levels at the moment. Bank Nifty has seen slight recovery because of the big boy. State Bank of India has seen some bit of buying at the lowest bottom which it had touched intraday. But India Cements is the counter on my radar since last 3 days. Because of the news development there is no relief in sight for this particular counter, which was knocked off sharply when it announced the JSW deal. And for the past 2 days also, it has been trending lower. So keep an eye out on that. Let's get you some important national developments then. Well, the Supreme Court has delivered a split verdict in the Karnataka hijab ban case, while Justice Hemant Gupta dismissed the appeals challenging the Karnataka High Court order. Well, the Justice Sudhanshu Dhulia allowed them. Now, given the divergence of opinion, the Apex Court directed placing the appeals before the Chief Justice as well in this particular case. And now the verdict has come on a bunch of appeals challenging the restriction on Muslim girl students wearing hijab in educational institutes in Karnataka.
All right, that is an important update coming in that we wanted to bring you up to speed with. But something else that we're tracking in our special, nearly 70% of Rajasthan is covered by desert, and the agri-independent population of the state mainly depends on rainfall to make a living. Now, over the years, in efforts to sort of introduce better irrigation systems, we've seen that play out across the state. Tube wells now contribute to over 30% of the state's agricultural as well as domestic needs, but it is these very tube wells that are now running dry. CNBC-TV18 Sandhya Gora visits Jodhpur, which is one of the state's 10 largest districts which are designated as desert land, but support a majority portion of the agri community. So take a look at this special.
This is Rajasthan's Tivri Mathania region. It lies around 35 kilometers from the city of Jodhpur and is predominantly desert land. But for over 2 decades since the mid-90s, the region did not have a problem with water scarcity, mainly because almost every farm in the region housed multiple tube wells which formed the bedrock of their irrigation system. In the last 10 years, however, the situation has changed drastically.
पानी खारा आता, जमीन खाली हो जाती, धान बीज हल तक नहीं है, आगे पैदा कुछ नहीं होती। अभी स्थिति बहुत माड़ी है, बोरिंग बहुत ऊंडा गया, पानी ऊंडा गया, अपना ट्यूबवेल करेंगे, पानी नहीं मिल रहा है। पहले तो पानी मिलता, अभी तो मिलता ही नहीं है।
हम दूसरी जगह से पानी लाते हैं, यहाँ से 3-4 किलोमीटर दूरी से।
दूसरा पानी तो आता है, कितना दिन चलेगा कितना दिन नहीं चलेगा वो कोई मालूम नहीं है। वो चलता है तो आधा वो पानी वाला रहा और आधा हमका रहता है, आधा तो वो पानी वाला ले जाता है।
For farmers like Dedaram, who cannot afford to depend on the region's irregular rainfall to sustain his 5-acre fields, the situation has become dire. A depleted groundwater table has meant that the 3 tube wells which serviced his farm have become useless. He now fetches water from over 3 kilometers away to ensure his crops of garlic, cotton, groundnuts and chili do not wither away.
दिनों दिन पड़ता ही गया, आने वही एकदम पड़े, दिनों दिन बिल्कुल धीरे धीरे बंद होगा। पर कोई ट्यूबवेल में खारा भी हो गया, ठीक है, बिल्कुल बंद हो गया। हमें पानी इन बारों लाभ ये फसल पाई है। अरे हमारी इन साइड में आगे है 2 किलोमीटर पानी बिल्कुल खारा है, जो पानी बारीक होने आवत खारी जमीन ना हो जाए, पावा कौन खेत पड़िया, क्या काम है।
His son and neighbor Sonaram chimes in with some stark numbers.
अभी 2 साल पहले हमने एक बोर और कराई थी, जो अभी अब मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ, उसमें एक बूंद भी पानी नहीं मिला है। दूसरी जगह से हम 4-5 किलोमीटर से पानी की व्यवस्था करते हैं, उसका लगभग हमारे हिसाब से 1 बीघे में लाख रुपए का लगभग खर्चा आता है।
The state government is aware of the situation, but its efforts to provide aid have not been very successful, and this has the farming community frustrated.
राजस्थान में अंडरग्राउंड वाटर जहाँ भी पेयजल लायक था, खेती लायक था, वह सब डार्क जोन की स्थिति में है, सब सूख चुका है। और सरकार ने वाटर शेड के नाम से हज़ारों करोड़ रुपया इन्वेस्ट किया है, लेकिन वो भ्रष्टाचार के गया है।
As of 2020, the Central Groundwater Board says that of the 295 blocks in the state, the underground water levels had been overexploited in 203 blocks, so nearly 69% of the state's blocks that cannot be used anymore. The water level in 23 other blocks had reached critical levels, shrunk to semi-critical levels in 29 blocks, and only 37 blocks have water levels above levels considered safe. 3 of these blocks have been categorized as containing saline water. The report also points to rising level of magnesium, fluoride, chloride, sulfate, calcium, uranium, and arsenic in groundwater.
This year's heat wave made the situation worse. The summer was especially difficult for people of Nagaur, Bhopalgarh, and Tivri-Mathania regions of Jodhpur block. Farmers in these regions depend on rains for their irrigation and domestic needs, and the unpredictability makes this less than a favorable situation for a state like Rajasthan. Every government which has ruled the state so far has claimed that it has worked to improve groundwater levels, but neither data nor ground realities support these claims. In Mathania, with camera person Milind Wagmare, this is Santhya for CNBC-TV18.
All right, a very interesting and important story there. With that, it's a wrap on Business Lunch. Thanks so much for tuning in.